In front of Robb Elementary School, we stood before 21 crosses. Do something. Just do something. For God's sake, do something.
Gun violence is an epidemic in this country. The year 2022 has already broken mass shooting records. There were 10 of them alone over this past weekend alone, and last week, 19 children and 2 teachers were murdered at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas, which has led one House Democrat to come up with this 1,000% tax on weapons idea. Let's learn more. What has Congress done since the Uvalde shooting? Recently, in the wake of the Uvalde shooting, the House Judiciary Committee held a roundtable pushing the Protecting Our Kids Act. The act consists of 8 different gun measures, including making it illegal to import, sell, manufacture, transfer, or possess large-capacity magazines, raising the age for purchasing a semi-automatic center-fire rifle from 18 to 21 years old, and establishing federal rules regarding the safe storage of firearms. The provisions are thought to easily pass the Democratic-led House. However, those bills all require some Republicans to vote to pass and would require 60 votes to break the filibuster to pass the gun control legislation, and that's very unlikely to happen. The bright idea. One House Democrat had the novel idea for curbing sales of semi-automatic weapons like AR-15s, the type of firearm used by both shooters in the massacres in Uvalde and Buffalo last month. The proposed bill places a 1,000% excise tax on any type of semi-automatic firearm, pushing up the price of the military-style weapon beyond the means of many potential buyers. Republican Don Beyer of Virginia is working on a bill now and hopes to introduce it in the next few days. The proposed legislation does not ban these weapons but simply introduces a tax on them, which is a power clearly delegated to Congress under Article 1 of the Constitution. Additionally, because the bill would be a revenue measure, it could be introduced through the reconciliation process, which would only require approval from 50 senators instead of the 60 votes needed to pass most legislation. Only a simple majority would be required to get the bill passed. What this means. Even though most Americans continue to favor stricter gun laws, Republican lawmakers have opposed banning semi-automatic weapons like AR-15s, which have been used in many mass shootings and whose ammunition travels up to 3 times the speed of sound. With prices ranging from about $500 to $2,000, AR-style firearms are affordable for many consumers. An excise tax of 1,000% would mean an additional cost of $5,000 on a $500 weapon and an additional $20,000 for a $2,000 firearm. The easiest way to understand the basic concept of the legislation Congressman Beyer is drafting is if you can imagine taking the Assault Weapons Ban Act of 2021 and changing it so that instead of an outright ban, it imposes a 1,000% excise tax on manufacturers, producers, and importers of the same items, Fitchner said. The bill would include all of the firearms defined as assault weapons using terms similar to those in Congressman Cicilline's Assault Weapons Ban Act, Fitchner said. The proposal would make an exception for purchases by government entities such as federal, state, or local law enforcement, as well as U.S. military, he added. What it's intended to do is provide another creative pathway to actually make some sensible gun control happen, Beyer told Insider in an article published Sunday while discussing his proposal. We think that a 1,000% fee on assault weapons is just the kind of restrictive measure that creates enough fiscal impact to qualify for reconciliation. What is reconciliation? Reconciliation is a tactic that can allow laws to bypass the Senate's 60-vote requirement known as the filibuster. Under this process, a law can pass with a simple majority so long as every Democratic lawmaker supports it. Democrats used this strategy last year to approve a COVID-19 relief package and the House-approved Build Back Better bill. One expert told media sources that Beyer's measure could meet the threshold of bypassing the filibuster because taxes get more deference in budget reconciliation than other policies from a parliamentarian point of view. However, the bill would still likely face significant hurdles, even among Democrats. Multiple lawmakers have previously proposed tax hikes on guns and ammunition in an attempt to drive down sales, but have been unsuccessful. More details? Some details of the bill still aren't finalized, such as when the tax would take effect and what to do with any revenue raised. It's also unclear how much money it would generate. The National Shooting Sports Foundation, in a 2014 court brief, cited estimates that AR-15-style rifles accounted for 1 in 5 guns purchased in the U.S. Gun sales have surged since then and last year reached their second highest level recorded. Law enforcement agencies and the U.S. military wouldn't be subject to the tax, Bayer said. The legislation would also apply only to future sales and not to the 20 million AR-15 style rifles already estimated to be in circulation across the U.S. Other guns used for hunting and other recreational purposes would also be exempt. Sales for military-style firearms. Rifles like the AR-15 are military-style firearms that are considered semi-automatic weapons and which were banned from 1994 through 2004. Since the ban expired in 2004, sales of these weapons have increased as gun manufacturers produce new types of AR-15s and other assault-style firearms and marketed them as essential for self-defense. About half of all rifles made in the U.S. or imported in 2018 were AR-style weapons, according to the Firearms Trade Group and SSF. In 2020, there were about 20 million AR-style firearms in the U.S., the group said. Some manufacturers, such as Daniel Defense, the manufacturer of the gun used by the Uvalde shooter, have introduced payment plans to help consumers purchase AR-style weapons in installments. Daniel Defense offers buy now, pay later plans, popularized by companies like Peloton, to get consumers to pony up for pricey items by breaking down the full cost into much smaller monthly payments. For instance, one of Daniel Defense's most expensive guns, an AR-15 style weapon that retails for more than $2,300, can be purchased for monthly payments of about $108. With the excise tax that Bayer intends to propose, that installment payment could balloon to $1,000 a month. Why this move? Bayer's proposal comes after the mass shooting in Uvalde, Texas, where 19 children were killed and 2 adults were injured on May 24th at Robb Elementary School. As Democrats and Republicans continue to spar over gun legislation in the aftermath of similar attacks against schools, grocery stores, churches, and medical centers. Earlier this week, President Joe Biden called on Congress to either ban the sale of assault weapons or raise the age to purchase them from 18 to 21. He also called for a ban on high-capacity magazines, as well as increased background check requirements and a repeal of the immunity that protects gun manufacturers from liability if their weapons are used in deadly attacks. How much more carnage are we willing to accept? How many more innocent American lives must be taken before we say enough? Enough, the president said in an impassioned speech to the nation. It's time to act for the children we've lost, for the children we can save, for the nation we love. Let's hear the call and the cry. Let's meet the moment. Let us finally do something. What are the chances of this bill passing? This bill could get around the tricky filibuster rules, which have stalled nearly every other policy in the Biden administration. Since the tax increase would raise the revenue for the U.S., it could pass without having to go through the Senate, meaning only Democrats would need to vote for it. However, that doesn't mean it's a surefire win. More moderate Democrats who have signaled support for actions on guns would still have to get behind the tricky maneuver. And while it wouldn't be an outright ban, assault weapons were banned in the U.S. from 1994 to 2004, and the Bush administration let the ban expire, which was followed by a massive jump in mass shootings. It would make it harder for these weapons of war to make their way into people's hands. That's all for this video, folks. See you another time.